Well, good morning. It's May 17th here in our Southwest Ohio Zone 6B garden. And in this video, I'm going to give you an update on how the garden's doing and talk about really important tasks we're doing to make sure we set ourselves up for success as we transition from the cooler spring garden to the warmer summer garden. For those of you that are new here, I'm Peter with the Garden Family, and I wanted to welcome you to our little corner of the world and the garden that we've created, and I hope you enjoy the tour. In the last video, we had just built this new tomato trellis and we had just planted our tomatoes, so let me show you how those are doing and what we're doing to start training them onto this contraption. The tomatoes have been in the ground a little more than 2 weeks now. They have some very good growth on them, and basically what we're doing with this set of tomatoes, these are indeterminate tomatoes, so they're the vining type, and we are training them to single stems along these 3 leaders. So there'll be basically 3 vines coming up these poles, and so we're selecting which vines we want. Once we select those, then we'll remove all the other suckers or new branches that come off of them. So this tomato, for example, we have a leader here that we could use. We have one here and one here, but this one that's kind of sticking out this way, we probably would remove that one in order to just have the 3 leaders up these poles. And then once we have those, we'll just remove every other sucker as it develops. This gives good airflow and lets you really see the fruit. And it works really well in our not super hot summer climate. For these 3 tomatoes planted in straw bales, we're putting them to a single leader up this 10-foot EMT conduit. So with those, basically I'm removing all of the suckers except for 1 leader. So this one, for example, not needed, and we can toss that away. This gives really good airflow around the plants as well, and it's what we did last year with really good results. For our determinate tomatoes, it's really a hands-off approach because you don't actually prune or sucker them at all. These are the bush type tomatoes, and this year we have them in these little V-shaped cages made of cattle panels, and that will help the plant sort of flopping over into the pathways and the fruit getting onto the straw. These paste tomatoes were pretty small when we planted them out, and they are really doing well in the straw, and this method works really good for us. If you're interested in how we do that, we do have a couple videos showing how to condition and plant in the bales, and I'll put the link of the first one up here on this video. The tomatoes in our large 8-foot tomato cages are really looking nice. These ones we're allowing to have multiple leaders. It's kind of the most cumbersome of the way that we trellis tomatoes. Basically, each one of these vertical components of the cage, we're going to have 1 leader going up each one. And once we get 12 of them, because there's 12 vertical components, then we'll start removing all the remaining suckers. That creates sort of a cylinder of tomatoes where there's no foliage on the inside, so that gives really good airflow. And I find it works really well for these more aggressive type of tomatoes that are kind of hard to contain into 1 stem. So things like cherry tomatoes, this is a sun gold cherry tomato, which is our favorite. One challenge we have as we get into the middle of May is the wildly fluctuating temperatures, along with the fact that we have both plants that enjoy cooler weather and plants that want warmer weather. So let me show you a few things that we're doing to kind of help modulate the microclimate and make sure our plants get what they need. And one of them's right here. You can see I have a 30% shade cloth, and it's open on this side but closed on that side. That's because this is east, so they're all getting some nice morning sun, but as we get towards the heat of the afternoon, then this lettuce and the carrots we have under there are shaded. Now for the broccoli, I just have it currently under insect netting. When we planted this out early April, we actually had it under frost cloth because it was still very cold. Right now we're kind of in that nice mid-transition where we have a lot of 70-ish degree days. And during that time, we just have insect netting to prevent the cabbage moths from getting to the broccoli. And then as we get towards the more warm portion of later May, lots of times we will put a shade cloth in addition to the insect netting on the broccoli. The broccoli is actually doing really well. I'll pull this cover off and show you how it's doing and the fact that we are actually getting somewhat close to harvest. Growing broccoli in the spring for us can be a little bit difficult just because of those fluctuating temperatures. But you can see this head of broccoli is looking really good. Nice tight heads, pretty big size, about as big as my hand. And I think we're gonna have a really good harvest. This variety is Emerald Crown. The cabbage and the cauliflower are also in the same family, so they get the same treatment with the insect netting. Cabbage heads are getting pretty big, and we actually have some of the earlier varieties of cauliflower ready to harvest. To give our pepper plants the right microclimate, we actually have a fleece row cover here, and when we have cooler days, I actually close the front and back of it that's open right now, and that increases the temperature within this bed, including both the air and soil temperature. On warmer days, then we just open up this area, and then it's more like a hoop house with open sides, and that allows good airflow. But overall, the peppers are doing really well. They're really loving this setup that we have here. Last year we didn't have them underneath the beds that had the hoops for row covers. Luckily last year it was really warm, so our peppers did great, but this season's been a little bit cooler in the early season, so I'm really happy that we have them here. Overall, great growth. We see a lot of branching and a lot of flowering and fruiting. For those of you that are following our videos pretty closely, you may recognize this plant. This is the pumpkin plant that we planted in the straw bale in the video about how to plant in straw bales. You can see it just has really nice growth. It's really loving this environment. You can't really see the straw bale because one of the things we like to do is actually cover or mulch the straw bale itself to reduce the amount of water loss. A few other things we have growing in straw bales. These are the watermelon. They are actually really loving it. They're doing very well. We're going to start training them up this cattle panel. And let me also show you the melons. Along this cattle panel, also grown in straw, are all of our melon plants. Really excited about this season because we planted quite a different variety of melons, a lot of which we haven't tried before. Main things we're looking for with the melons, obviously good growth. We're just starting to see some flowers here, although I don't see any female flowers yet. And then we're also monitoring for cucumber beetles, which can spread bacterial wilt to melons. And so far it's been a pretty good season, but that was something that was difficult for us last year. And part of the reason I wanted to have vertical support for the melons rather than letting them trail along the ground is just much easier to monitor for pests. The strawberries are just ripening, although I would say I didn't do a very good job with the strawberry patch this year. We sure have a ton of strawberry plants and they're all very healthy, but I didn't thin them enough, and so they're all very closely spaced together. It makes harvesting the fruit difficult, and also the fruit tends to be a lot smaller. But if you just look right here, bunch of strawberries all right in this area. Nothing beats a homegrown strawberry. In the garlic bed, we are just about the time when we're starting to get scapes on the garlic. That is the flower stalk of the hardneck garlic, which is the type we plant here in Zone 6B. One of the things I love about it, it's an added harvest. They taste incredible in stir fries, so we'll be harvesting those, and then it's just a few more weeks till this garlic will be ready. The onions are always about 4 to 6 weeks behind the garlic, so they still have a decent amount of growth happening. For the garlic, we've stopped fertilizing it since the scapes have formed, but with the onions, we're going to continue to fertilize for the next month or so, and then stop once we start getting the bulbs forming. The sugar snap peas are looking very nice and just starting to produce fruit. The way we're supporting these is, this used to be our old tomato tower that has these vertical supports, and we just take string and tie and loop it around the supports. It creates basically a wall of string on either side of the plant. So the plant runs through the middle The string just holds them in place. We learned from our mistake last year and put a little sort of fence around the asparagus. You can see how tall it gets, and then when the wind comes it tends to flop over. We had some pretty decent winds last night and this worked out really well. We really could have harvested more young asparagus than we did this year, although we did get a decent harvest, so next year we'll definitely be harvesting quite a bit. Our potatoes we have in ground on a mounded bed and they're doing really well. A few flea beetles, which is typical for potatoes, but it doesn't seem to slow them down at all. For us, these generally get harvested mid-season once the foliage dies back, and then we usually do a row of sunflowers to replace the potatoes here. Another important task this time of year is recognizing the self-seeded annuals that you want to keep. So just as an example, just in this bed here, this is where I have some of my apple trees, and last year we had a lot of different flowers that self-seed in this area. So take it upon yourself to learn what the small seedlings look like and to differentiate them from weeds. What we have in this bed is we have some cornflowers. They're actually already pretty big and flowering. They popped up very early in the season. And then we have some morning glory plants, and we also have baby cosmos flowers coming up. In a different part of the yard we have volunteer sunflowers, as well as a ton of spider flowers which self-seed readily as well. And all you can do is just go in there and take out some that you don't want if they're in the wrong spot, but keep others in strategic locations. Bonus flowers that you didn't even have to start. Another really important task if you have fruit trees this time of year is keeping them healthy by getting rid of pests and diseases. While we are almost entirely organic, one of the exceptions is the sprays that we put on our fruit trees. We did a lot of research in our area. We wanted a big variety of fruit trees, including stone fruit, like this AU Rosa plum. And basically the consensus was if we wanted to grow these here in our climate, we probably would not have success using only organic methods. So this time of year is really important because the new growth on the plants is the most susceptible to pests and diseases. And so after petal fall, we've been spraying about every 2 weeks with a combination of a antifungal and a pesticide for these plants. They can get a lot of fungal diseases, and then for the fruit there's things like plum curculio, which is a very difficult to manage pest that will attack the plants. I found it's safer on the rest of the ecosystem to be really consistent with the sprays. That sounds counterintuitive, but what I don't want is, let's say, to only spray occasionally, allow aphids to come and colonize on the plant, then the beneficials come to try to eat those aphids, only to then spray and kill both the aphids and the beneficials. When you're consistently spraying, you don't really have the pests, which means you don't really have, at least in the trees, the beneficial insects that eat the pests. So at least that's my logic as far as keeping a healthy ecosystem. We don't use sprays anywhere else in the garden, and we use hand sprayers to just isolate it only to these areas. But that was something that we made a hard decision about and ultimately decided that we needed to use real sprays on the fruit trees if we wanted to grow the variety of trees that we have. So that about does it for our mid-May update. We've had a lot of comments asking that we do more frequent updates, so that way there's a little bit more consistency in seeing how our plants are doing and what we are doing to keep them healthy. So that's what we're trying to do for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you made it this far, go ahead and give us a thumbs up down there. We'd really appreciate that. And if you're not a subscriber and you want to see how everything progresses throughout the season, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Wishing you all great success in your garden. Happy gardening, everyone.